Hello friends, welcome to the HFY Ode, where we bring you new science fiction stories, a new world, a new adventure. And yes, there is no robotic or AI voices here, only real human voices with real human touch. So let's start this journey, and please subscribe my channel if you like the stories and press the bell icon for the latest updates. Let's have a story. Okay.
Let me tell you something I have never told anyone outside my own kind. I was there. I was on that ship. And for a long time I told the story wrong because for a long time I believed the wrong thing. We all did. Every record in the Concord said the same words about that creature, and the records are usually right, so why would we argue with them? The record said apex predator, class 12 origin, do not approach, do not recover, if found alive, terminate from range. I read those words on a small screen by the light of a dying console, with my hands shaking, while the thing those words described lay 6 paces away from me, bleeding out, breathing in a way that sounded like an engine trying to start. And I want you to remember that as I tell this. I want you to remember that we knew, we had the warning. We were not foolish people who walked blind into a danger. We were careful people. We read the file. We understood the risk. We brought him aboard anyway. I still don't fully know why. I have had a long time to think about it, and the closest I can get is this. There was a sound he made, lying in that wreck, and it was not the sound a hunting thing makes. I had heard hunting things. I had grown up on a world that had plenty. This was a different sound. This was the sound my own mother made the night my brother did not come home. So let me start at the beginning. Let me tell you about the quiet errand and the dead field, and the thing we found inside it that the whole galaxy had decided to fear. The quiet errand was a salvage hauler. If you have never seen one, picture something ugly. Then make it uglier. Then strap 3 engines to it that were never meant to work together, and you have her. She was old. Her hull was patched in 9 colors because we bought our plating from whoever was cheapest at whatever port we were starving in. Her gravity ran a little light, so everything felt like it was about to float, all the time just slightly, like the whole ship was holding its breath. Her air smelled of hot metal and the cleaning paste we used to scrub the holds, and under that always the smell of us. 5 different species in a tin can. You get used to it. You stop noticing. Then you dock at a clean station, and you realize you smell like a closet nobody has opened in years, and you are too poor to care. There were 6 of us. Captain Brask was a Holt. You know the Holt? Big, slow, built like somebody stacked stones into the shape of a person and then taught the stones to be patient. His skin was a gray that went green when he was angry, which was rarely, and pale when he was worried, which was more often than he let us see. Brask had run salvage for 40 years. He had a rule for everything. Most of his rules were about not dying, and most of them I learned by watching him almost die and then refuse to do that thing ever again. Poe was the engineer, a Krask, 6 arms, no patience, and a laugh like something breaking. Poe could fix anything that had ever been built and several things that had not yet been invented. Poe talked to the engines like they were difficult children, and the engines somehow behaved. Ulla flew us. She was tall and thin and quiet, from a world I never went to, and she had eyes that took up most of her face, made for the dark of deep space. She did not waste words. When Ulla spoke, you listened, because she had decided you were worth the air. There was Tev, who handled the cutting gear and the heavy work. Young, loud, brave in the way that gets people killed before they learn better. He had a soft spot the size of a moon and hid it under a lot of noise. And there was me, Niven, the medic more or less. I am a Thessin. We are small and soft-furred, and we frighten easily, and the rest of the galaxy thinks we are good for very little except being afraid. I will not argue with the second part. We are very good at being afraid. It has kept my people alive for a long time, while braver people went into the dark and did not come out. What I will say is this: being afraid is not the same as being a coward. A coward runs. We thessen, we are afraid, and then we stay anyway because the small soft thing we love is still standing behind us. That is a different animal entirely. Remember that. It matters later. So that was the crew. 6 of us in our ugly little ship, taking jobs that the bigger, prouder companies turned their noses up at. We did not chase glory. We chased wrecks. We found dead ships and we stripped them for whatever we could sell, and we tried to make enough to fly to the next dead ship. It is not a noble life. I will not pretend it is, but there is a kind of dignity in it that I never found anywhere else. We pulled the bones of other people's disasters out of the dark, and sometimes in those bones we found the dead and we did right by them. We logged them. We sent word to their kin if we could find any. We did not loot the dead like animals, the way some crews did. Brask had a rule about that too. "We're scavengers," he used to say in that slow stone voice. "We are not thieves of the dead. Know the difference or get off my ship." Nobody ever got off the ship. The job that changed everything came to us the way the worst jobs always do: cheap, easy, too good. We were docked at a relay station on the far edge of nothing, a place so far out the stars looked thin, like the light had to travel so far to reach us that some of it just gave up on the way. A broker we half trusted had a lead. A debris field, freshly mapped, unclaimed, sitting in a dead zone where the local star had burned out a long time ago and left a graveyard of rock and ice and old wrecks. "Quiet sector," the broker said. "Nobody's worked it in a decade. There's tonnage in there. Hulls, drives, maybe intact cargo. First crew in gets the cream." "Why hasn't anyone worked it?" Brask asked. Always the right question. The broker shrugged in the way his species shrugged, which involved more of the body than ours does. "Bad luck reputation. Ships go in, ships don't come back, you know how it goes. Superstition. Nothing in the survey says hazard." Nothing in the survey said hazard. We held on to that later. We held on to it hard. We took the job. Of course we took the job. We were 3 meals from broke, and the relay station charged us rent just for breathing their recycled air. The trip in took 4 days. 4 days of Ulla threading us through rock and old ice, slow and careful, her big eyes never leaving the scope. 4 days of the field getting thicker around us, the wrecks getting more frequent, old hulls drifting in the black like the carcasses of things that had crawled here to die. And it was a graveyard. The broker had not lied about that. We logged 11 wrecks in the first 2 days. Most were too old, too stripped, too smashed to be worth the cutting. But there was metal there, and salvage, and Poe got the holds half full of good plating and 3 drive cores that were worth more than the whole trip combined. We were happy. I remember that. I remember the mood on the ship those first days. Tev was singing badly. Poe was laughing that breaking glass laugh. Even Brask let his skin go its calm gray. We thought we had gotten lucky for once. We thought the worst thing about this trip would be the cold and the cramped holds and the long way home. On the 3rd day, Ulla found the ship that was not like the others. She called us all to the bridge. That by itself told us something. Ulla did not call you unless it mattered. "Look," she said, and put it on the main screen. It was a wreck, but it was wrong. The other wrecks in that field were old, salt-burned, decades dead, the kind of ruin that takes a long time to make. This one was different. This one was new. The hull was scorched but whole. The damage was sharp, recent, the edges of the holes still bright where they had been torn instead of dulled by years of micrometeorite kiss. "That ship died recently," Brask said. His voice had gone very flat. "How recently?" Ulla worked her console. "Hard to say, months, maybe less. The drift pattern is fresh. It hasn't settled into the field yet." "Make," Brask said, "origin." Ulla ran it. We watched the screen think. And then the answer came up, and the bridge went quiet in a way that had weight to it. "Unknown registry. No match in Concord records. Hull configuration unclassified." "Pirates," Tev guessed. "No," Ulla said slowly. "I've seen pirate work. This isn't a faction we know. This is." She trailed off and zoomed the image, and there on the side of the broken hull was writing. I had never seen writing like it. None of us had. It was angular and strange, a script of straight lines and hard corners, painted in a fatting white on the dark metal. And next to the writing was a symbol, a circle, and inside the circle a shape. It took me a moment to understand what the shape was, because I had never thought to make a picture of it. It was a hand, 5 fingers, one of them shorter, set apart, opposed. "That's a paw," Tev said. "Look, that's a grabbing paw." "It's a hand," Allah corrected quietly. "It's somebody's hand. They painted their own hand on their ship." We all looked at that hand for a long moment. There is something about it, when you see a thing a stranger made to say, "This is mine, this is us." Even when you have never met them, even when they are dead, it reaches across the cold and it touches you. "Run it against the deep registry," Brask said. "Not just Concord, everything. Old records, fringe surveys. I want to know who these people were." Allah ran it. And that was when the file came up. The file with the words I will never forget. The deep registry is old. It goes back further than the Concord, back to the surveys the first explorer fleets made when they pushed out into the dark and cataloged everything they found. Worlds, species, hazards. Most of it is dust now, never updated, half of it wrong. But it is thorough, the way frightened people are thorough. The match came back partial. The script was logged. The hand symbol was logged. And attached to them was a survey entry, old, flagged, sealed under a hazard code I had never personally seen in all my years on the errand. Hazard 12. I did not know what Hazard 12 meant. Brask did. I watched his skin go pale, the worried gray-white, and I watched him read the file, and then I watched him do something I had never seen him do. He sat down, heavily, like the file had weight and it had landed on him. "Read it out," Poe said. 6 arms had gone still. "Brask, read it out." He read it out. "I am going to give it to you the way he gave it to us, because the words matter. The words shaped everything that came after. Origin World, Class 12. Designation, Death World Upper Tier, Gravity High, Atmosphere Corrosive to most. Native Biosphere classified hostile across all sampled regions. Dominant species, bipedal, endothermic, obligate, social, omnivorous, trending, carnivorous. Apex predator of Origin World. No natural predators recorded. Species note, pursuit predator. Note, does not abandon pursuit. Survey contact, catastrophic. Recommend no contact. If specimen recovered alive, contain or terminate. Do not release. Do not transport. Do not attempt domestication. Do not trust apparent docility. Common designation in Surveyor can't. The ones who do not stop. Brask stopped reading. Nobody said anything. Pursuit predator, Poe said finally. What does that mean, pursuit predator? I knew that one. It is a biology word. I am the medic. I read the biology files when I cannot sleep, which is often. It means, I said, and my voice came out small, that it does not ambush. It does not pounce and finish. It chooses prey and then it follows, for as long as it takes, hours, days, it runs the prey to exhaustion. It does not get tired the way the prey gets tired. It does not give up. The prey dies because it cannot keep running and the predator never, ever stops coming. The bridge was very quiet. "And this ship," Brask said, nodding at the screen at the broken hull with the hand painted on it, "belonged to those things." "That ship was crewed by those things," Allah said, and there was something in her voice. I have thought about it many times. It was not fear. Allah did not do fear. It was more like wonder. "Captain, a pursuit predator that builds ships, that writes, that paints its own hand on the hull so the dark knows who it belongs to. Think about what that means. Think about what it took for a thing like that to climb up off a death world and into the black." "It means we leave it alone," Brask said. "That's what it means. Mark it hazard. Log the position. We do not approach. We do not cut. We do not touch it. We finish the field and we go home." And he was right. He was completely right. If we had done that, none of this would have happened, and I would have a much shorter and much sadder story to tell, in which 6 scavengers got rich and went home and never learned the thing I learned. We almost did it, we almost flew on. Then the wreck pinged us. It was Poe who caught it, a signal weak repeating from inside the dead hull, not a hail, not a distress beacon, not exactly. It was a single tone, regular, patient, repeating on a frequency so low it was almost not a signal at all. A pulse, steady, slow. That's a power source, Poe said, leaning over the console, 6 arms flying. Something in there still has power. A core that should be dead months ago is still ticking. Captain, there's something keeping the lights on in that ship. Automated systems, Brask said. Dying battery, leave it. No, Poe had that tone, the engineer's tone, the one that meant a puzzle had its hooks in. Captain, batteries don't pulse like this. This is regulated. Something is managing this power, drawing it down slow, careful, like it's rationing, like it's trying to make it last. Or, Ulla said softly, like something is trying to stay alive. I want you to understand what that meant. It meant the ship might not be empty. It meant that somewhere in that broken hull, something had survived months in the dark and the cold and the silence, rationing the last of its power, keeping itself alive on the edge of nothing, pulsing a slow, steady signal out into a graveyard where it could not possibly expect anyone to hear. And we had heard it. It's calling, Tev said. He was very young. He said the soft thing out loud, the thing the rest of us were too careful to say. Captain, it's calling for help. It's been calling for months and nobody came, and now we came. It is a Hazard 12 Apex Predator, Brask said, slow, heavy, each word set down like a stone. The file says terminate from range. The file says do not trust apparent docility. A calling signal is apparent docility. It is exactly the thing the file warns us about. Anything in that ship that is still alive is the most dangerous thing any of us will ever meet. And it is dying, which makes it a thing that has nothing left to lose. We do not open that door. He was right again. I want that on the record. Brask was right every time, all the way down the line. Every rule he had, every caution, every careful word, he was right. I broke first. It was me. I have carried that for a long time, not as guilt. I want to be clear. I do not carry it as guilt. I carry it the way you carry the moment your whole life turned on a hinge, and you choose, knowing what you know now, to be glad it turned the way it did. Play the signal, I said. Poe, play it out loud, let me hear it. Poe looked at Brask. Brask, after a long moment, dipped his head. Permission. Poe patched it through the bridge speakers. And we heard it, the pulse, slow, steady. A low tone and a gap and a low tone and a gap, patient, endless. The sound of something that had decided, a long time ago, that it would keep doing this until it could not anymore. And I knew that sound. I told you at the start about the sound my mother made the night my brother did not come home. This was not that sound, but it was that sound's cousin. It was the sound of waiting. It was the sound a living thing makes when hope has been wrung almost dry and there is one last thin thread of it left, and the thing refuses to let go of that thread. That is not a hunting sound, I said. My voice was shaking. I let it shake. Captain, I have heard hunting things. That is not a hunting thing. That is a grieving thing. That is something alone in the dark that does not want to die alone. You are putting a feeling onto a frequency, Brask said. But his skin had gone the worried gray-white again, and he was not looking at me. He was looking at the wreck. Maybe, I said. Maybe I am, but you have a rule, Captain. You have a rule about the dead. You say we do right by them. You say we are not animals. Well, that thing in there is not dead yet, and if we fly on it will be, alone, in the cold, still calling, and we will have heard it and gone anyway. Brask did not answer for a long time. Outside, the wreck turned slowly in the dark, painted hand to the stars, pulsing its patient little pulse into the nothing. Suit up, Brask said at last. Tev, Poe, Niven, your medical, you come. Allah, you stay on the errand, and if I give the word, you burn us out of here, and you do not wait. Heavy weapons, containment gear. We go careful, we go ready. He turned and looked at all of us, and his old stone face was very serious. And understand me, if it is what the file says it is, if it moves wrong, if anything is wrong, we put it down. No hesitation. I will not lose a single one of you to a thing the whole galaxy told us to fear. Are we clear? Clear, we said. We were not clear, we had no idea, but we said it. Crossing to the wreck took 20 minutes in the shuttle. 20 minutes of staring at that broken hull getting bigger and bigger in the port, until it filled the whole view, until I could see the individual tears in the metal, the scorch patterns, the painted hand, faded but defiant, scaled up close now into something the size of our shuttle's whole side. It was bigger than I expected, a real ship, not a fighter, not a little courier. This was a vessel meant to carry many, to travel far. Whoever these people were, the ones who do not stop, they had not come out here alone. This was a ship for a crew, a ship for a, and I did not have the word yet, the word I would learn, a ship for a pack. The hull breach was on the dorsal side. A long tear, like something had reached out of the dark and opened the ship the way you open a shell. We brought the shuttle in close, and Tev cut us a clean entry, and we went in. I will tell you about the inside of that ship. It was cold, cold beyond cold, the kind of cold that gets into your suit and starts whispering to you about how warm it would be to just stop, to just rest. The lights were dead, all of them except for a faint emergency glow that pulsed in time with the signal. They're gone, staining everything a dim, tired red. And it was full of the dead. I had seen the dead before. We were scavengers, but I had never seen anything like this. They were everywhere, in the corridors, in the rooms, dozens of them. They had died where they fell, in the cold and the dark, and the cold had kept them, so they did not look as the long dead look. They looked like they were sleeping. They looked like at any moment they might sit up. They were the predators, the ones from the file. Bipedal, as it said. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head soft on the outside and built around a frame of bone. Bigger than me, smaller than Brask. Their skin came in browns and tans, and one of them, a small one, was very pale. They wore clothing uniforms, the same angular script stitched on the breast. And on the shoulder of every single one of them, sewn or painted or stamped, was that symbol, the hand inside the circle. Look at the wounds, Poe said, quiet over the suit channel. Captain, look at how they died. I looked, and I understood slowly what had happened to this ship. They had been boarded. The wounds were weapon wounds, energy burns, the marks of a fight. Whoever these people were, someone had come for them, here in the dark, and there had been a battle, and the people of the painted hand had lost. But they had not lost easily. The dead were not just in their rooms, not just caught sleeping. Many of them were in the corridors, near the breaches, near the doors. They had died facing the enemy. They had died moving toward the fight, not away from it. I counted without meaning to, the way a medic counts. There were defensive positions. There were bodies stacked at choke points where someone had made a stand. There was a pattern to it, a discipline, even in the dying. These people, these pursuit predators, these things the galaxy said to fear, they had been a crew, a unit. And when death came for them, they had not scattered. They had closed ranks. They had stood together, and they had died together, facing the same direction, defending each other to the last. This wasn't a hunt, I said. I do not think I meant to say it out loud. Captain, this was a slaughter. Somebody slaughtered them, and they died protecting each other. Keep moving, Brask said, but his voice had changed. We followed the pulse. It led us down into the heart of the ship, toward the source of that patient little signal. And as we went deeper, the cold got deeper too, and the dead got fewer until we came to a sealed door, the only door in that whole dead ship that was still shut tight, still holding pressure, still, faintly, barely, warm. Whatever was alive in this ship was behind that door. Tev, Brask said, cut it, slow, Poe, containment ready. Niven behind me, weapons up, everyone, on my word and not before. Tev cut the door. It took a long time. The metal was thick. And the whole time the pulse went on, slow and steady, they're gone, and I stood behind Brask's bulk with my small heart hammering, and I thought, this is the most foolish thing I have ever done, and I have done many foolish things, and I am going to die here in the cold in a dead ship, because I felt sorry for a monster. The door came free. Heat rolled out, not much. But after that terrible cold, even a little was a shock. There was a chamber beyond, small, and in the center of it, a pod. A survival pod, the kind that seals and holds heat and air and keeps one living thing alive when everything else has failed. It was running on the last of the ship's power, the power that something had been rationing so carefully, drawing it down so slow, making it last and last and last. And the pod was not alone. Around it, arranged with terrible care, were the dead. Not scattered, not where they fell, arranged. Someone had gathered them. Someone had carried them here one by one through the cold and the dark and laid them in a circle around the pod. Their hands, those five-fingered hands with the one finger set apart, were folded. Their faces were turned inward, toward the pod, toward the one warm thing in all that death. 6 of them. 6 bodies, arranged in a ring, facing inward, keeping watch over the pod in the center even in death. "What is this?" Poe whispered. "Captain, what am I looking at?" I knew, the medic in me knew, even before my mind would say it. "Someone survived the fight," I said. "Someone lived, and they were hurt, badly hurt, and they got into that pod because it was the only way to stay alive. But before they did, they gathered their dead. They carried their crew here, everyone they could reach, and they laid them around the pod, facing in." My voice broke. I let it. They didn't want to be alone, even in the pod, even dying. They put their people around themselves so they wouldn't have to die alone in the dark. Through the small window of the pod I could see it. The thing that was still alive. The last of the ones who do not stop. Curled in on itself, wrapped in a thermal blanket, a tube in its arm, machines breathing for it. Soft brown skin gone gray with cold and blood loss. A face, and I want to tell you about the face, because it is the thing that finished me. The thing that meant there was never any chance I was going to walk away. It was a young face. I did not know how I knew that, but I knew it. And it was not a monster's face. It was a tired face. A face that had been crying, the tracks still there, frozen. A face that had decided somewhere in all that cold and dark and death to keep breathing anyway, to keep the pulse going, to keep calling, just in case. Just in case somebody, anybody, anywhere in all the cold black was still listening. And we had been listening. The pod's monitor showed me the rest. Vital signs in a script I could not read but in patterns I knew by heart. Heart rate slow and weakening, temperature too low, power almost gone, hours maybe, less. This thing, this apex predator, this hazard 12, this monster the galaxy said to terminate from range was going to die. Soon. Alone, except for the dead it had gathered close, unless we did something. "Captain," I said. I turned and looked at him through my visor. His skin was the palest I had ever seen it. "Captain, it's dying. We can save it. The pod can be moved. We can take it to the Aaron, to medical. I think I can keep it alive, but we have to go now." "Niven," Brask's voice was very heavy. "You read the file, terminate from range. Do not trust apparent docility. All of this," he gestured at the ring of the dead, "this is the most dangerous thing we have ever seen. You understand that? A thing that does this," he could not finish. "I understand," I said. "I understand exactly what it is. I'm looking right at it. It's a person, Captain. It's a person who carried its dead family through the cold so it wouldn't have to die alone. The file got it wrong. Or the file isn't the whole story. I don't know. But I'm not flying home knowing I left this one in the dark to die. I'm not. You'll have to fly without me because I'm not getting back on that shuttle unless this pod comes with me." It was the bravest thing I have ever said. I am a Thessan. We do not say brave things. We were not built for it. My whole body wanted to run. Every instinct my species spent 10,000 years sharpening was screaming at me to get away from the dead thing and the dying thing and the cold. I stayed anyway, because the small, soft thing I loved, and somehow in those few minutes it had become true, was lying in that pod dying. That is a different animal entirely. I told you it would matter. Brask looked at me for a long, long time. Then he looked at the pod, at the gray young face, at the frozen tears. Poe, he said finally, and his voice was rough as gravel. Get that pod free of the deck. We're taking it home. Captain Tev started, half in joy, half in fear. I am going to regret this, Brask said. I can feel it. I am going to regret this for the rest of my life. He turned to leave the chamber, and then he stopped, and he looked back one more time at the ring of the dead, the 6 bodies arranged with such terrible love around the one survivor. And he did something I will never forget. He brought one big stone hand up slow, and he touched it to his chest over where his heart would be, and he bowed his head to them, to the dead strangers, to the slaughtered crew of the Painted Hand. We've got your last one, he said quietly to people who could not hear him. We'll do right by them, you have my word. Then we took the pod and we ran. The next part is hard to tell, because the next part is when the thing woke up. We got the pod across to the errand. We got it into medical, which on our ship was a closet with 2 beds and equipment older than Tev. Ulla burned us out of the field the moment the airlock cycled, hard and fast, because Brask wanted distance from that graveyard. None of us said the thing we were all thinking, which was, who slaughtered those people, and are they still out here? I worked on the pod. I will not bore you with the medicine, partly because half of it I made up as I went, treating a biology I had never seen, from a death world no medic in the Concord had laid hands on in living memory. I patched what I could read of its wounds. I warmed it, slow, the way you have to, because warming a frozen thing too fast will kill it as surely as the cold. I got fluids into it, guessing at the chemistry, watching the monitors, adjusting, praying to gods my people stopped believing in long ago. And slowly, over a day, over 2, the gray face got less gray. The heart rate climbed. The temperature came up. The breathing got stronger, lost that engine trying to start sound, settled into something steady. It was going to live. I should have been happy. Part of me was. But there was another part, the old afraid part, the part that had read the file, and that part got louder every hour, because every hour the thing in the pod got stronger, and stronger meant more dangerous. And I was a small, soft medic alone in a closet with a healing apex predator. We had it restrained, of course. We were not fools. Brask had seen to that. The pod was open now, the lid up, but the creature lay on the medical bed with its wrists and ankles in soft restraints, heavy ones, the kind we used for cargo. Brask checked them twice a shift. He stationed Tev outside the door, armed at all times. Nobody went in alone. Those were the rules now, and they were good rules. But somebody had to tend it, and that somebody was me. So I was the one in the room when it opened its eyes. I was changing a fluid line. My back was half turned, and I heard the breathing change. I froze, every fiber of me froze. Slowly, slowly, I turned around. It was awake. Its eyes were open. They were brown, dark brown, with a ring of white all the way around, and they were looking at me. Not wild, not snarling, not the way the file had taught me to expect. They were looking at me the way a frightened person looks at a stranger in a strange place when they do not know if they are safe. They were afraid. The apex predator, the thing that does not stop, the Hazard 12, was lying in my medical bay, restrained, weak as a newborn, and it was afraid of me. We looked at each other for a long time. I did not move. It did not move. I could hear Tev shift outside the door, hear the small sounds of the ship, the hum of the engines, the tick of the cooling system. Then it spoke. I did not understand the words. Of course I did not. Its language was the angular script made into sound, hard and soft at once, nothing like any tongue I knew. But I understood the shape of it. It was a question. The voice was cracked, weak, barely there, a thread of sound from a throat that had not spoken in a long time. But it was a question, and there was something underneath the question, underneath the fear, that I recognized so completely that my whole chest ached. It was hope. It asked me something in its dead tongue, in its cracked thread of a voice, and the question was full of fear. And underneath the fear was a hope so naked and so desperate that I could not bear it. I did not know the words, but I knew what it was asking. It was asking, are any of the others alive? Did anyone else make it? Am I alone? I did not have its words, so I did the only thing I could. I am a medic. I am a Thessan. We are small and soft and we frighten easily, but we know how to be gentle because gentle is the only weapon we ever had. I reached out very slowly, and I laid my small furred hand on its arm above the restraint, where the skin was warm now, finally warm. And the creature, the apex predator, the monster the whole galaxy said to fear, looked at my hand on its arm and looked at my face, and understood the answer in the only language that crosses every border there is. It was alone. Everyone else was gone. I was telling it with my hand the kindest way I knew. They are gone, but you are not alone. I am here. I have you. And the thing that does not stop began, very quietly, to weep. It took him a long time to stop weeping that first day, and when he stopped, he slept. Real sleep, not the long, cold sleep of the pod. I sat with him the whole time. I do not know why. Brask told me to come out, told me Tev could watch him, told me to eat and rest. I did not go. I sat on a stool in my medical closet beside the most dangerous creature in the known galaxy, and I watched it breathe. And somewhere in the watching, the fear in me went quiet. Not gone, I want to be honest. The fear never went all the way gone, not for any of us, not for a long time. But it went quiet enough that I could hear, underneath it, the other thing. The thing I had heard in the signal. The thing I had seen in the ring of the dead. He woke again on what we were calling the second day, though out there in the dark. Days are just a thing you decide to believe in so you do not go mad. He woke, and he was calmer. The fear was still there, but it had a floor under it now. He knew where he was, more or less. He knew he was not in the cold anymore. He knew the small furred thing sitting beside him had not eaten him while he slept, which I suppose from his side was worth knowing. I had brought food. I did not know what he could eat. The file said omnivore trending carnivore, which told me almost nothing useful and several things that scared me. So I had brought a little of everything we had. Protein paste, the dried fruit Tev liked, water, a bowl of the broth Poe made when one of us was sick, which smelled like home and tasted like effort. I set it all on the tray arm and swung it over to him. And then I did a thing I had been thinking about. I unfastened one of his wrist restraints. I know what you are thinking. It was foolish. Brask would have turned every color his species could turn. But I had been watching him for 2 days, and I had a theory, and a medic learns to trust the patient even when the file says do not. He looked at the freed hand. He looked at me. He looked at the food. And then, and this is the first thing he did that began to teach me what he really was, he did not eat. He pushed the tray back toward me. He pushed the food back toward me, this starving thing, this creature that had been months in a pod rationing itself to the edge of death. And he made a sound, a soft questioning sound, and he gestured at me, and at the food, and back at me. He wanted me to eat first. I did not understand it then. I understood it later when I understood what a pack was. But even then, even not understanding, I felt the weight of it. Here was the most dangerous predator the galaxy knew, half dead with hunger, and the first thing it wanted, given food, was to make sure I had eaten. So I ate. I took a little of the broth, made a show of it, swallowed. And only then, watching me, only when he had seen me safe and fed, did he eat. And he ate like a starving thing, finally, desperately. But even then he kept stopping, kept glancing at me, kept checking that there was enough, that I was not going without. He would eat a little and then push the bowl toward me again, an offer, and I would push it back, and he would eat a little more. We did that for the whole meal, pushing the bowl back and forth. 2 creatures from opposite ends of the galaxy who could not share a single word, learning the oldest language there is. You first. No, you. Are you sure? Eat. I'm fine. Eat. When Brask came to check the restraints and found one of them open, and the predator, and the medic passing a bowl of broth back and forth like grandmothers, I thought his hearts would stop. "Niven," he said, very carefully, very quietly, the way you speak around something that might go off. "What are you doing?" "He shares his food, Captain," I said. "He wouldn't eat until I ate. He kept pushing the bowl to me." I looked up at Brask, and I think my face must have been doing something because his hard old expression cracked just slightly. "Does that sound like a monster to you? A monster eats. A monster takes. This one shares, even starving, even with a thing he should be afraid of. The first instinct he had, free and hungry, was to feed me." Brask looked at the human for a long moment. The human looked back, and slowly, carefully, he picked up the bowl and held it out toward Brask. "An offer. You're big. You should eat too." Brask did not take it, but his skin went from the worried gray-white to its calm gray, just a shade, and that was something. That was a great deal for Brask. "Keep the other restraints on," he said, "but—" a long pause. "But you can leave that one off while you're with him, not when you're not." He turned to go and stopped at the door and said without looking back, "The broth was a good idea. Bring him more. I should tell you how we learned to talk to him, because it matters, and because it is one of the few parts of this story that is not sad. It started with names. I pointed at myself one day and I said my name. Niven, slow, clear. Niven. I tapped my own chest the way he tapped his. He understood at once. His face did a thing. I would learn this face well. It was the face he made when something pleased him, the corners of his mouth pulling up, the eyes crinkling, a baring of teeth that should by every instinct have terrified me, and somehow on him did the opposite. He pointed at me and made my name in his cracked voice. Niven. Close enough. Closer than I expected. Then he pointed at himself. And he said his name. I am not going to pretend I got it right the first time. His name had sounds in it my mouth was not built for. But he said it, slow, patient, again and again until I could make something like it. 2 syllables, soft then hard, a name like a door opening and closing. I will write it the way I learned to say it, Kel. His name was Kel. Once we had names, the rest came faster, the way it always does once 2 people decide they want to understand each other. He learned ours. He learned them all, and he learned them carefully, like they mattered, like getting them right was the most important work in the world. Niven, Brask, Po, Ulla, Tev. He would say them over quietly to himself, fitting his mouth around our strange sounds, and when he got one right he would look so pleased, and when he got one wrong he would frown and try again until it was right. We learned a little of his words too. Water, pain, yes, no, good, friend, that one he taught us early, and he used it often, and every time he used it he would touch his chest and then point at whoever he meant, and there was such weight in it, such seriousness, that we understood it was not a small word to him. Friend was not a small word. Friend was, I think, the largest word he had. And he taught us the word for his symbol, the hand inside the circle. He drew it for me one day with a stylus on a slate, slow and careful, and then he put his own hand inside the circle to show me, his 5 fingers, the one set apart, and he said a word. The word meant pack. I did not have a word for it in my tongue. We Thesson have herd, and we have family, and we have crew, but we did not have his word, the one that meant all of those at once and more. The circle was the pack. The hand was the self inside the circle. You are nothing alone, you are everything together. The circle holds you and you hold the circle. That is what the symbol meant. That is what his whole dead crew had painted on their ship, on their shoulders, on the dark itself. We are a pack, we belong to each other, the circle holds. And then he pointed at the symbol, and he pointed around the medical bay at me, at the door where Tev stood guard, at the whole ship, and he made the word again, with a question in it. He was asking if we were a pack. I did not know how to answer. I did not have the word. So I took the stylus and I drew the circle and I drew the hand inside it, and then I drew around the hand 5 small shapes, 6 in all counting his. Niven, Brask, Po, Ulla, Tev, Kel. I drew his pack back the way I understood it, not the one he lost, a new one, small and strange and made of creatures he had never seen before, but a circle, with him inside it. I have seen a great many faces in my life, of a great many kinds, do a great many things. I have never seen any face do what Kel's face did when he understood that drawing. He cried again, but not the way he cried the first day. The first day he wept for the dead. This was different. This was the other kind. The kind that comes when you have been alone in the cold so long you forgot what warm was, and then someone wraps you in something, and the wrongness of the cold finally has a name because finally, it has ended. He put his hand over my small drawing, over the whole crooked circle, and he held it there and he said our names, all of them, one by one, like a promise, like a prayer, like he was learning the shape of a thing he had thought he would never have again. Now, I have told you the soft parts. I have to tell you the other parts too, because if I only tell you the soft parts you will think Kel was a gentle creature, and Kel was not a gentle creature. And that is the whole point. That is the thing the galaxy got wrong, and the thing I am trying to make you understand. Kel was gentle with us. That is a different thing. That is a thing he chose. Underneath the gentleness was every single thing the file warned about, and I saw it more than once and it frightened me to my bones, and I would not have traded it for anything. The first time I saw it was an accident. Tev, young loud Tev, came into medical too fast one day, too loud, slamming through the door the way he slammed through everything. And he had a cutting tool in his hand from some job he'd been doing. And the light caught it wrong. And for 1/2 of 1 second it looked like a weapon, and Tev looked, to a creature who had watched its whole pack slaughtered by boarders, like a threat coming through the door fast and armed. I have never seen anything move the way Kel moved. He was healing, he was weak. He was restrained at 3 of 4 limbs. None of that mattered. Between one breath and the next he was up. He had torn the bed's frame half out of its mounting. He was between Tev and me, between the threat and me, and the sound that came out of him was not the cracked, weak thread I knew. It was a sound from the bottom of the world. It was the sound the file should have used instead of words. It was do not made of pure animal certainty, and it said, as clearly as any language ever said anything, you will not touch them. You will go through me first, and you will not go through me. Tev dropped the tool and fell backward and made a sound of pure terror. And I, small, soft, frightened Niven, I did the most insane thing of my whole life. I stepped forward and I put my hand on Kel's back, on the broad, heaving back of the raging predator, and I said, Kel, friend. Tev is friend, it's all right. He's pack, Kel, the circle holds. And Kel stopped. Just like that, the terrible sound cut off. He was breathing hard, every muscle locked, his whole body still aimed at Tev like a weapon half fired. But he stopped. He turned his head and he looked at me, and he looked at Tev, cowering, harmless, dropping the tool, and I watched the understanding come back into his eyes, watched the predator fold itself back down into the person, watched Kel come back into the body that the death world had built. He looked at Tev. He looked at the dropped tool and the truth of it, just a tool, just clumsy, loud Tev, no threat at all, and something crossed his face that I can only call shame. He had nearly killed a member of his own pack. He had mistaken family for an enemy. He went to Tev. Slow now, careful, every line of him gone soft and apologetic. And he knelt down by the terrified boy, and he made small sounds, and he reached out and touched Tev's shoulder very gently, over the place where his own people wore the symbol of the hand. And Tev, shaking, looked up at the thing that had nearly torn him apart, and saw that it was sorry, truly sorry, and Tev, because Tev had a soft spot the size of a moon, Tev started to laugh. The way you laugh when you've been so scared, and then the scary thing turns out to love you. It's okay, Tev said, patting the great hand on his shoulder. It's okay, big guy, I came in too fast, my fault, we're okay. Kel did not have those words, but he understood, and from that day on, Tev was his. Of all of us, I think Kel loved Tev most fiercely, the young one, the one he had almost hurt, the one he spent the rest of his time with us making sure he never hurt again. When Brask heard about it, he came and stood in the medical bay for a long time, looking at the bed frame Kel had torn half out of the wall. He could have killed Tev, Brask said. He could have, I agreed. He didn't, he was protecting me. He thought Tev was a threat to me and he put himself between us, weak and wounded and restrained, and he was ready to die doing it. And the second he understood Tev was Pack, he stopped. Instantly. And then he was sorry, Captain. Do you understand how much that means? He wasn't sorry he failed to kill. He was sorry he almost hurt one of his own. That's not a weapon. A weapon isn't sorry. That's a person with a weapon's body, who has spent his whole life learning to point the weapon only at the right things. Brask was quiet for a while. On his world, he said slowly, the file says no natural predators, apex. Nothing hunts them, so why are they like this? Why pursuit? Why pack? If nothing hunts you, what made you into that? I had thought about it. In the long hours by the bed, I had thought about little else. I think, I said, they hunt each other. Or they did long ago. I think the only thing on that whole death world dangerous enough to make a creature like Kel was another creature like Kel. I think they spent 10,000 generations learning that the most dangerous thing in the world has your own face. And the only way to survive a world full of things like you is to never be alone, to build a pack, to make a circle and stand inside it back to back so that whatever comes, it cannot come at all of you at once. I looked at Kel, sleeping now, the great body curled small. They didn't survive because they were the best hunters, Captain. They were probably better hunters. They survived because they were the best at belonging, at choosing each other, at dying for each other. That's the death world's real lesson. That's what climbed up off that planet and into the black. Not a predator, a pack that would not break. Brask did not answer for a long time. When he did, his voice was strange. Then we should be very glad, he said, that he has decided the circle includes us, and we should be very afraid of whatever decided to break his last one. I have been putting off telling you about the ones who broke it, because telling you about them means we are getting close to the bad part, and I do not like the bad part, even now, even all these years later. But you need to know, so. We were running for a port the whole time, you understand. We could not keep Kel in a medical closet on a salvage hauler forever. We did not know what to do with him, not really. Brask's plan, as much as he had one, was to get to a conquered world with a proper xeno-medical facility and proper authorities, and hand the whole impossible problem to someone with more resources and more sense than 6 broke scavengers. It was the responsible plan. It was the right plan. It was also, I think, the plan none of us wanted, because by then Kel was ours and we were his, and the thought of handing him to strangers who had only read the file made my stomach turn. But we did not say that. We just kept running for port and pretending the running was the hard part. The running was not the hard part. It was Ulla who saw them first, the same as she'd seen Kel's wreck. She had the night watch, or what we called night. And she came to wake Brask, and Brask woke the rest of us, and we gathered on the bridge in the dim, and Ulla put it on the screen. A ship behind us, packing us, matching our course and our speed at the very edge of sensor range, hanging back, just shadowing. How long? Brask said. 6 hours, Ulla said, maybe more. They came out of the dark behind us and they've been holding station since. They're not closing, they're not hailing, they're just following. Make, Brask said, origin faction. Ulla ran it. And the answer that came back turned the bridge cold. Unknown registry. No conquered match. Hull configuration, consistent with Raider Marauder profile. Weapons, heavy. Recent activity in this sector, associated with 3 logged wreck sites. Cause of wrecks, hostile boarding action. 3 wrecks, hostile boarding in this sector, recent. It's them, I said. The words came out before I decided to say them. Captain, it's the ones who did it, the ones who took Kel's ship. They're still out here. They've been working this whole graveyard, hunting ships, boarding them, slaughtering the crews. That's why nobody works this field. That's the bad luck reputation. It was never bad luck. It was them. They've been picking off whoever comes in. And now we came in. And now they're following us out. Why follow? Poe said. If they're raiders, why not just hit us? Why shadow? Allah answered, quiet and certain. Because we took something out of that wreck. They've been working that field for months. They know every hull in it. They know that wreck was sealed, that something in it still had power. Maybe they were saving it. Maybe they meant to come back for whatever survived. And then we showed up and we cracked the seal and we took the one thing they hadn't finished with. She turned and looked toward the corridor, toward the medical bay, toward Kel. They're not following us. They're following him. They left a survivor. They came back to finish it, and we'd taken him. The bridge was silent. They want to finish the job, Brask said. The words landed like stones. They slaughtered his whole pack, and they left one alive by accident or because they thought he'd die. And now they've learned he didn't die, and they cannot have that. They cannot leave one alive because he stopped. Because a pursuit predator does not stop, I finished very quietly. And they know it. They know what he is. They know that if even one of the ones who do not stop lives, it will spend the rest of its life coming for them. So they have to finish it. They have to make sure not one of the circle is left to remember their faces. I felt sick. I felt sick all the way down. How long to port? Brask asked Allah. 11 hours if we burn everything. And how long until they decide to stop following and start boarding? Allah looked at the screen, at the patient predatory shadow hanging in our wake. They've waited 6 hours already, she said. They're not in a hurry, they think they have us. There's nowhere for us to go that they can't follow. They'll come when they're ready, and we'll never know it's coming until it does. We did not sleep that long run for port. None of us. We made what preparations we could, which were pitiful. The quiet errand was a salvage hauler, not a warship. We had cutting tools and a few personal weapons and one old defensive turret that Poe swore at constantly and trusted not at all. Against a dedicated raider crew, the kind that had butchered a whole ship of pursuit predators, we had almost nothing. We run, Brask said. We run for port and we pray we make it before they move. That's the plan. That's the only plan if they board us. He did not finish. He did not have to. I went to tell Kel. I do not know how I thought I would tell him. We had names and a few hundred words between us and a circle drawn on a slate. How do you say the ones who killed your family have found us and are coming to kill the rest of us too in a few hundred words? I did not have to find the words. He already knew. I found him standing at the medical bay's small port looking out at the dark. His restraints, we had taken them all off by then, days ago, because keeping a member of the pack in chains had come to feel obscene. His restraints were off and he stood at the port and he was utterly, terribly still. Not the stillness of rest. The other stillness. The one I'd seen the day he nearly killed Tev. The stillness of a thing that has caught a scent. He had felt it, somehow. The change in the ship, the fear in us, the shadow in our wake. He did not need sensors. The death world had built him to know in his blood and his bones when the thing that hunts has found the thing it hunts. He turned from the port and looked at me, and his face was not afraid. I want you to understand that. Every one of us, the whole crew, we were sick with fear. And Kel, who had more reason to fear these people than any creature alive, who had watched them murder everyone he loved, Kel was not afraid. He was something else. Something the file had a word for, and I had not understood until that moment. He pointed out the port into the dark, toward the shadow we could not see but he could somehow feel, and he said a word I did not know, a hard word, a word that came up from the bottom of the world. Then he pointed at me, at himself, at the door where the rest of his new pack waited in their fear, and he drew in the air with one finger the circle, the hand inside it. And then he closed his hand into a fist, and he held it up, and he looked at me with those dark eyes ringed in white, and I understood him completely, in every language there is. They came for my circle once. They broke it. They will not break this one. Whatever comes through that door, it comes through me. I should have been comforted. I was not. I was afraid, but not the way I had been. I was afraid the way you are afraid standing next to something vast and old and certain, something that has made up its mind, something that the whole galaxy spent 10,000 years learning to write warnings about. the ones who do not stop. And one of them had decided we were his. I went back to the bridge to tell Brask that Kel knew, that Kel understood, that Kel intended to stand between us and whatever was coming. And I never got to finish telling him. Because that was the moment the lights went red, and the whole ship screamed its boarding alarm, and Allah's voice came over every speaker at once, tight and clear and afraid. They're here, they've matched us, they're cutting the aft lock, they're coming in. I want to tell the next part right. I have told it wrong before in the years since, when I was younger and the wound was fresher, and I wanted it to be a story about a monster who turned out to be a hero. It is not that story. I have come to understand it is a stranger and a truer story than that, and I owe it to Kel to tell it true. So the lights went red, the alarm screamed, Allah's voice said they're coming in, and the quiet errand our ugly patched-together home became in the space of a breath, a trap with us inside it. We had talked about what to do. Brask had a plan the way Brask always had a plan. The plan was to fall back, to seal the bulkheads one by one, to put metal between us and them, to funnel them through the narrow places and make them pay for every meter, and to just hold, until we reached port and the port's defenses and the authorities who could help. 11 hours we'd needed. We'd run 8. 3 hours left. The plan was to survive 3 hours. It was a good plan. It was the kind of plan you make when you are weak and outnumbered, and the only thing you have going for you is that you know your own ship better than the people coming to take it. Kel did not fall back. I was with him when the alarm went. I had gone back to medical. I don't fully know why, except that if it was ending, I did not want him to be alone for it. And when the lights went red, he moved, and I thought he would do what we'd planned, fall back with me toward the bridge, toward the center, toward the place where the pack would make its stand. He went the other way. He went toward the aft lock, toward the cutting, toward them. Kel, I grabbed at his arm. I am small. He did not even feel it. Kel, no, we fall back, we go to the others, that's the plan. He stopped. He turned. And he looked down at me, and he did a thing he had started doing in the last few days, a thing I had no word for then but came to understand was the most human thing he did. He pressed the flat of his hand very gently against the top of my head. A blessing. A goodbye, stay. You're soft. You're precious. Stay where it's safe. And then he made the circle in the air, and he pointed back toward the bridge, toward the others. The circle is there, go to it. Hold it, and he pointed at himself, and at the aft toward the enemy. I understood. He was not falling back to the center of the pack to be defended. He was going to the edge of it, to the dark place where the danger came in, to be the thing that stood between the danger and everyone he loved. Because that is what you do on a death world, when the thing that hunts you finds your pack. You do not all hide together and hope. The strongest goes to the edge. The strongest stands in the gap. The strongest makes themselves the price, so the rest of the circle holds. Kel, you can't, I said. There's too many of them, they'll kill you, they came here to kill you, you can't fight them all alone. He smiled at me, that terrible, wonderful baring of teeth, and he said in his cracked, careful voice in my own tongue, 3 of the words we'd taught him, slow and clear and certain. Not alone, pack. And he was gone into the red dark, toward the cutting and the enemy, and I stood in the corridor with my hand still out where his arm had been, and I have never felt so small in my life. I am going to tell you what I saw because I saw it and Allah saw it, and the part of it the censors caught we watched 100 times after, trying to understand, and we never fully did. The raiders came in through the aft lock. There were a lot of them. We counted later from the censor logs. 14 breached our ship. 14 armed, armored, experienced killers, a crew that had boarded and butchered ship after ship in that graveyard, that had taken down a whole vessel of pursuit predators by overwhelming force and surprise. They were professionals. They knew their work. They came in fast and hard and confident in a wedge, weapons up, fanning out to take the corridors. They were confident because they thought they understood the situation. 1 half-dead survivor, 5 soft scavengers, An old hauler with no teeth, an easy kill, the last loose thread of a job to be snipped and forgotten. They did not understand the situation. The first thing they did not understand was that the one half-dead survivor was no longer half-dead. I had spent 10 days putting Kel back together. He was not what they'd left in that wreck. He was healed and fed and rested, and he was standing in the dark of the aft corridor when they came through, and he was waiting for them. The second thing they did not understand was that he was not afraid, and they were used to fear. Every crew they'd taken had been afraid. Fear is the boarder's weapon. You come in fast and loud and terrible, and the fear does half your work. But the thing waiting in the dark of our aft corridor had run out of fear a long time ago, in a cold pod, surrounded by the dead it had carried there. There was nothing left in Kel for them to frighten. The third thing, and this is the thing the galaxy gets wrong, this is the thing I am trying to make you understand. The third thing they did not understand was discipline. The file said apex predator. The file said pursuit. The file said the ones who do not stop. And all of that is true, and all of it made them picture a beast, a raging animal, a thing of teeth and fury that you put down with enough guns. But Kel did not fight like a beast. I have seen beasts fight. A beast is fury. A beast is noise and rage and the spending of everything at once. Kel fought like the opposite of that. Kel fought quiet. He let the first ones pass him in the dark. Did you understand that? He had the chance to strike and he did not take it, because striking the first one would have warned the rest. He waited. He let the wedge come through, let them fan out, let them get strung out in the narrow corridor with their backs to the dark, and only then, when he had counted them and weighed them and chosen his moment with a patience that had nothing of the animal in it, only then did he move. He took the last one in the wedge first. The rear guard, silent, gone before the others knew. Then the next. He was working forward up the line from the back, taking them one at a time out of the dark, and by the time the lead raiders understood that something was behind them, that their numbers were thinning, that the dark was eating them, by then it was 4 gone and 10 left, and the confident wedge had become 10 frightened killers in a narrow place with a thing they could not see. And then they were afraid. For the first time, the boarders were the ones who were afraid. And Kel, who knew fear better than anything alive, who had been built by a death world to hunt the fear and other things, Kel used it. I will not give you all of it. Some of it I do not want to say out loud even now. It was not gentle. It was not kind. The thing I had passed a bowl of broth back and forth with, the thing that pressed its palm to my head in blessing, the thing that wept for its dead, that thing took our ship's aft third apart in the red dark and took 14 killers down to a handful, and it did it with a cold, patient, terrible competence that I will see behind my eyes until I die. But here is the part you have to understand. Here is the part that is the whole point. He never once came back toward us. He could have fallen back. When they finally rallied, when the survivors got organized, when the fight turned hard and he took wounds, bad ones, I saw them after he could have retreated, pulled back to the bridge, made us help, spent some of us to save himself, the way the file's predator would have, the way a thing that only cared about its own survival would have. He never came back. He held the gap. He stood in the place where the danger came in between the enemy and his pack, and no matter what they did to him, he would not let himself be pushed back even one bulkhead, because one bulkhead back was one bulkhead closer to us. He bled and he held. He took wounds that should have dropped him and he held. The ones who do not stop. He had decided we were his circle, and a thing like Kel does not stop holding the circle. Not for pain. Not for wounds. Not for death. There is no force in the dark that makes one of them stop once they have decided you are theirs. That is the warning the galaxy wrote down wrong. They wrote do not stop pursuing. They should have written do not stop protecting. It is the same engine. It only ever points one of 2 ways. And the raiders had spent months learning the first way, the pursuit, the hunt. They had never once imagined the second. I said I would tell it true, so I will tell you the part where it nearly went wrong, because it nearly did. He was one creature and they were many, and even the ones who do not stop can be brought down by enough. 2 of them got past him. It was near the end. Most of the raiders were down, but 2 of them in the chaos peeled off, found a side passage, a maintenance crawl Poe had been meaning to seal for years, and they came up behind the gap Kel was holding. They came up into the middle of the ship, toward the bridge, toward us. Toward me, because I had not gone to the bridge. I had stayed in the corridor like a fool, like a Thessan who could not make his legs carry him away from the thing he loved. And I was there in the middle passage when the 2 raiders came up out of the crawlway, and one of them grabbed me. I am small, I told you, I am soft. I have no weapons and no strength and no business in a fight. The raider got an arm around me and a weapon to my head, and he started shouting down the corridor toward the gap toward Kel. I did not need to know his language to know what he was shouting. He was shouting the thing that boarders shout. He was shouting, "Stop, or this one dies." He thought he had a hostage. He thought he had found the soft thing, the precious thing, the thing the monster would stop for. And he was right that I was precious to Kel. He was right about that. He just did not understand what it meant. Kel came around the corner of the gap, and he was a horror to look at. Wounded, bleeding, terrible, and he saw me, small Niven in the grip of the raider with the weapon to my head, and he stopped. He stopped, the raider had been right. The thing that does not stop stopped for me. And I saw the raider's posture change, saw the triumph in him, saw him think he had won, that he had found the leash, that he could back this monster down now, trade my life for his own escape. But I was watching Kel's face. The raider was watching Kel's body, his hands, his stance, watching for the fight. I was watching his face, the face I had learned over 10 days, the face that smiled and grieved and blessed. And his face was not the face of a thing that had been beaten. It was the face of a thing doing arithmetic, cold, fast, terrible arithmetic. The distance, the angle, the raider's grip, the half-second. He had stopped not because he was beaten, but because he had to think, because the wrong move and I died, and he was not going to make the wrong move. He was going to make the only move, and he needed 1/2 of 1 second to find it. I did the only thing I could do. I trusted him. I went limp, completely limp. Dead weight all at once, the way prey goes limp, and the raider's grip lurched to catch me. And for 1/2 of 1 second his weapon was off my head and his balance was wrong. And Kel was already moving, had been moving before I dropped, had read it, had known I would, because he knew me, because we were pack, because the circle holds, and inside the circle you know each other's moves like your own. I will not tell you what he did to the raider. It was very fast. The raider never got the weapon back on me. The second raider did not last longer than the first. And then it was over. The corridor was full of the down and the dark and the smell of it, and Kel was standing over me, swaying, bleeding from a dozen places, and his terrible, competent killing face was gone and his other face was back. The worried one, the gentle one, and he was making small sounds, frantic sounds, running those great hands over me, checking me, "Are you hurt? Are you hurt? Are you whole? Did they hurt you?" "I'm okay," I kept saying. Kel, I'm okay. You held the gap. I'm okay." He sagged. All at once, like a building coming down, the strength going out of him now that the threat was gone, now that the circle was safe, now that there was finally nothing left to hold against. He went down to his knees in the wreckage of the fight, and I caught at him, tiny, useless Niven trying to hold up a falling death worlder, and he looked at me, and he smiled that terrible, wonderful smile, and he said, in my tongue, the 3 words again, soft now, almost gone. "Pack not alone." And then he stopped being able to hold himself up, and I screamed for the others, and the pack came running. Here is the role reversal. Here is the part I love in this story I do not love. We had spent 10 days afraid of him. We had kept him in restraints. We had stationed a guard. We had read the file and believed, somewhere underneath, that we were keeping a monster, that one day it might turn on us, that the kindness was a risk we were carrying. And when he fell, when the thing that had stood in the gap and held it against 14 killers finally fell, every single one of us, without a word, without a thought, threw ourselves into saving him. Brask, who had said I will not lose one of you to a thing the galaxy told us to fear. Brask carried Kel to medical in his own great stone arms, gentle as anything, and would not let anyone else take the weight. Poe, who had wanted the restraints kept on, tore apart half the engineering stores to rig me the equipment I needed to keep Kel's strange Deathworld blood in his strange Deathworld body. Tev, who had cowered from him, who had nearly died by his hand, knelt by the bed for the whole long surgery, holding Kel's great limp hand in both of his and talking to him. The whole time, "Come on, big guy, come on. You held the gap. You don't get to quit now, we're your pack," you said it. You don't leave the pack, and crying and not caring who saw. And Allah flew us. Allah burned the errand harder than that old hauler had ever been burned. 8 hours of running collapsed into 5 by sheer refusal, and got us to port, to the proper facility, to the xenosurgeons with the real equipment in time. Barely in time, but in time. I did the first part. I want that on the record too. Small, soft, frightened Niven, the medic who made up half his treatments as he went, kept the most dangerous creature in the galaxy alive on a closet bed with rigged equipment and stubbornness for the 5 hours it took to reach help. I had pulled him out of the cold once. I was not going to lose him to the warm. He lived. I want to say that plainly because the rest of this story has been hard and you have earned this. He lived. The wounds were terrible and the surgery was long and the recovery was longer, but Kel lived. The ones who do not stop are very, very hard to stop. And we, his strange, small, accidental pack, we did not stop either. We had learned it from him. The circle holds. You do not leave the circle in the cold. The authorities, when they came, wanted to take him. Of course they did. They had read the file too, Hazard 12, Apex Predator, the ones who do not stop. And here was one, alive, recovering, on a battered salvage hauler crewed by people who had no business with it. They came with their containment teams and their weapons and their forms, and they were going to take Kel away to a facility. A secure facility, the kind with no windows and no broth and no pack, and study him, and contain him, and do whatever the conquered does with a thing it has spent 10,000 years deciding to fear. Brask stood in the airlock and would not let them aboard. I have told you Brask was careful. I have told you he was right every time all the way down the line. That he read the file and understood the risk and brought Kel aboard against all of it. Let me tell you the last thing Brask did, because it is the bravest thing I ever saw a careful person do. He stood in the airlock of his own ugly ship, in front of a conquered containment team, old and slow and built like stacked stones, and he said, "You read the file, so did we. The file is wrong, or the file is half a thing and the other half is the half that matters. That creature in there held our ship alone against 14 raiders. He took wounds that would have killed any of us 3 times over, and he never came back one step, because coming back one step was coming closer to us. He had a weapon to the head of my medic, and he didn't break and he didn't run, he saved him. That is not what the file describes. The file describes a monster. I have lived with a monster for 10 days, and I am here to tell you it is not a monster. It is a person. It lost its whole family to the same butchers we just put down in our own corridors, and instead of dying alone in the cold like the file expected, it decided that 6 scavengers it had never met were worth standing in the gap for. He did not raise his voice. He never did. His name is Kel. He is a member of my crew. You are not taking him anywhere. Log that however you like." There was a long silence in the airlock. I do not know fully why they backed down. Part of it was Brask, immovable as a moon. Part of it was the sensor logs which we gave them, which showed the whole thing, the gap and the holding and the not coming back. Part of it, I think, and this is the thing I hold on to, part of it was that somebody in that containment team looked at the footage of a wounded Deathworlder pressing its palm to a small medic's head in blessing, and telling it to stay where it was safe, and understood, the way I had understood in the medical bay, that the file had filed a person under the wrong word. They did not take him. There were conditions and oversight and forms, so many forms, and it was not simple and it was not clean, and there are still people in the Concord who think we were fools and worse. But they did not take him. Kel stayed. Kel stayed with his pack. He flew with us for years after that. I could tell you 100 stories from those years, and most of them are good ones, ordinary ones. The small, bright stories of a crew that works and argues and eats together and slowly stops being able to imagine itself any other way. He learned our tongues, all of them, in time. We learned his. He taught us the songs his old pack used to sing, the ones with the hand and the circle in them, and we sang them badly, and he loved that we sang them at all. He never stopped grieving the ones he lost. You do not stop grieving a pack, but grief is lighter when it is carried inside a circle, and we carried it with him, and that helped, I think. I hope it helped. We made him a patch after a while, the hand inside the circle, but we changed it with his blessing. We put 6 small marks around the hand, the way I'd drawn it on the slate that first day. His old circle on his shoulder, his new circle around it. The dead he carried and the living who carried him. He wore it until the end of his days, and the end of his days came long after the end of this story, and was peaceful and was surrounded and was not in the cold and was not alone. I was there. We all were. The circle held to the last. But that is another story, and a gentler one, and not the one you came for. You came for this one, so let me end it where it began. The galaxy had a file. The file said Apex Predator, Pursuit Predator. The ones who do not stop, recover, and you contain or you terminate, and you do not, under any circumstances, trust apparent docility. And the file was not wrong. That is the thing I most need you to understand. Every word of it was true. Kel was an apex predator. He was one of the ones who do not stop. I watched him take our ship apart in the red dark, and I will never forget it, and I would never call it gentle. The file was not wrong. The file was just incomplete. It described the teeth and forgot to describe the reason for them. It cataloged the engine and never asked which way it pointed. It saw a thing that does not stop, and it was so busy being afraid of being chased that it never once imagined what it would mean to be protected by a thing that does not stop. To be inside the circle of it. To be the soft, precious thing it presses its palm to and tells to stay where it's safe. We went into that graveyard thinking we were rescuing a predator. We were right. We were just wrong about what the predator wanted. Because Kel did not come aboard our ship looking for prey. He came aboard looking for a pack. And the most dangerous thing in the whole cold galaxy, it turns out, is not a creature that will hunt you to the ends of the dark and never stop. It is a creature that will love you to the ends of the dark and never stop. They are the same creature. We just got very, very lucky about which way it decided to point.